Hey guys, welcome back to TheWindowDog.com. Today is a big day around here. It is the very second Window Wednesday episode. Can you believe it's already been a week since our first Window Wednesday? Time sure flies. Now, in the meantime, in between those Wednesdays, we also put out bonus videos about Windows. This past week, we put out videos about virgin vinyl versus recycled vinyl, also about fusion welded windows, and if you should care about that. So in between every Window Wednesday episode, we're going to be putting out bonus videos as well. To make sure you don't miss out on any of that, you want to hit that subscribe button down below. It's right like down there. Make sure you hit that so that you're notified when we have new videos. If you're shopping for a project or if you're in the window industry, I think you're going to find this info to be helpful. So for today, employee versus subcontractor window installers. Get ready for fun. So if you're wondering about the tax status of window installers, the odds are pretty good that a window salesman has made that an issue. In my experience, people aren't just sitting around on the couch on a Sunday afternoon wondering how window installers pay taxes, but a salesman might have brought it up. He might have told you that his installers do it one way and everybody else's installers do it the other way, and obviously everybody else is not as good as his way, which might be why he's more expensive, but he's trying to tell you that in return for that higher price, you're going to get a better value from him because of the quality of workmanship that only the tax status of his installers can determine. As you might be able to tell from my tone already, that's generally not true, but it is a very commonly made claim. In fact, it's the claim made during a window sales pitch that is most frequently a lie. Now, people in the past have accused me of being too critical of window salespeople, and maybe sometimes I am. One thing to keep in mind is that there's very high turnover in the window sales industry. A lot of people who are out here doing this today, sitting in living rooms right now tonight, trying to sell windows, have very little experience. They might have just started this job a month or two ago. They probably just went through sales training, and all they really know about what their company is or what they do is what the trainer told them in that conference room 2 weeks ago. So when they're looking you in the eye and telling you that they have employee installers and everybody else uses subcontractors that are horrible, they genuinely might believe that. So I'm not trying to exactly say that that guy is a no-good liar and impugn his morality, but really, he's very often not telling you the truth. So before we even get into that, it's important to recognize the distraction technique that's going on here. When a company is making a big deal about the tax status of the installer, what are they really trying to do? Well, generally speaking, you don't care how the employees pay taxes or how the installers pay taxes or how the salesmen pay taxes. Who cares? None of your business. What you do care about is the quality of the work you're going to get and any service or follow-up work that might be needed. You know, how is that going to be handled? So what the window salesman does, or the sales manager, whoever came up with this sales pitch for their company, what they're trying to do is sort of relate two things that aren't exactly related, and then use that to differentiate themselves from the competitors. And you'll see them do this with lots of things. They'll do it with how many air chambers are in the frame, or what type of foam they use, or what the percentage of argon gas fill is, and all this stuff. We're going to come out with videos about a lot of that in the future, so stay tuned. But a lot of it falls along the same lines. It's making one claim and then trying to connect that to another claim when there's really not any valid connection in between. So what you want to keep in mind is what is your actual concern and how can you be comfortable that your concern is going to be satisfied with this company. If you can be, then you should probably work with them, and if you can't be, then you should probably look somewhere else. So I would guess that your concern when it comes to installers is, are these people going to be trained? Are they going to be competent and both ready, willing, and able to do what needs to be done to complete your window project? Are they going to show up on time and be professional and be able to address something that comes up that maybe wasn't anticipated? And your other concern is going to be, how are they going to handle a service issue that might come up in the future? Say you have a problem with your window a month or 6 months or a year down the road. How is that going to be handled? So the salesman who's making this claim might be telling you that the tax strategy of the installer is relevant to one or both of those concerns. I'm here to tell you it's probably not. Generally speaking, as someone who's supervised both employees and contractors for many, many years, you can have a problem with either one. For example, did you see that recent HBO miniseries about Chernobyl? It was kind of a great story, really dramatic. The guy the head guy that they painted as causing the problem, the guy who didn't stop the nuclear test when he had the opportunity to, and caused the whole plant to melt down, and hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, were affected. that guy was an employee, right? He was an employee of the state power agency, and he certainly could have hit the stop button on that test, but he didn't because his boss told him to complete that test no matter what, and he just said yes sir, and he was going to do it. An example of a contractor who does a great job might be a pilot. Did you know very frequently pilots are paid on 1099s and are contractors? Now, maybe not the big pilots at Delta, but you got cargo pilots, you got skydiving pilots, you got all sorts of people in the aviation business are 1099 folks. And do you think their planes crash any more often than pilots who are W-2 employees? I'll tell you they probably don't. So we know that the tax strategy of the installer really does not determine the quality of the work that they're going to do or the quality of the follow-up that you're going to get afterwards. Well, then what does, right? There's your next question. One thing you'll see on the website at TheWindowDog.com with some frequency is people posting about problems that they had with a window project. I think it's helpful to see that. Sometimes the problems are related to the window company, sometimes they're related to the salesman or to the installers, and sometimes they're just related to the customer. Sometimes the customer is demanding something that's just not particularly reasonable. So I think it's really interesting to read those comments and to watch what happens. One thing you'll see with some frequency is people who bought windows from a box store. They say, oh, there was a big box store down the street from my house. I drive past it every day. I wanted new windows. I didn't want to deal with all these weird in-home sales pitchy companies. I just called this company I knew that was down the road, had them install my windows, and I've had nothing but problems ever since. And a common thread you'll see is that the windows were installed by a subcontractor, and I've got a problem. Maybe one of the windows is leaking or it won't lock right or whatever the case is. And they call over to the box store that's around the corner, and those folks tell them, oh, you got to call Johnny's Windows because he's the guy that put those in for you. The customer calls Johnny's Windows. Well, Johnny doesn't return their call, probably because Johnny's already been paid for the project and he doesn't want to mess with it. So the customer's stuck with a window that's not working right. And you'll see in the comments, they'll say, oh, I've called the store 5 times. I tried to get a hold of the regional manager. I can't get this problem, and every time it rains, my window still leaks. Well, that's certainly not a predicament you want to find yourself in, but that's more of a reflection of how that company is handling their window project than it is the tax status of the installer. For example, a company that takes customer service seriously is going to understand that you bought windows from them, and if you have a problem with your windows, it's on them to fix your problem. Whether it's the installer that fixes it, or maybe an in-house production manager, or an installation manager, or a service technician, they're going to send somebody out to address your problem. Now, I know from many years of experience doing this, a lot of times people think they're having a problem with their windows, and they're not. They're having a problem with their house. They're seeing a leak that comes in from above the window, it runs down the wall, it hits the top of that window, and it shows up as wetness at the top of that window, and the customer calls up and says, my window's leaking. Well, it's reasonable that they would think that, but in fact, the window's not leaking, the roof's leaking, and it's showing up around the window. So sometimes a window company might just dismiss a concern because they don't want to deal with it because they know it's not a window problem, but the customer doesn't know that it's not a window problem. The customer's upset, and that relates or resolves itself in bad reviews online and unhappy people, and it's just no good for anybody. So as you're shopping for windows, what you want to focus on is how how is this company finding installers? How are they training installers? Who are they sending out to your house to install your windows? And how are they going to follow up if you have an issue? What if you have a problem the day after your windows are installed? What if you have a problem a month after, or a week after, or a year after your windows are installed? Those are the type of questions you want to ask these companies, and you want to get to the bottom of how are these things going to be handled. And then if something comes up, just follow the steps. Any reputable large company will have a process for these things. A customer calls in a month after the installation with a complaint about X, Y, or Z. They'll know what they're going to do. It's not the first time that's happened. They'll be able to address it for you. So here's a funny story. We had an installer at our company years ago who was got to be kind of buddies with Bianca and I. Our office was in kind of an urban area, and right outside on the street there were several restaurants and bars and places within walking distance. And every once in a while this installer, we'll call him Rick, would come to the office late at night to turn in some paperwork or pick up something for the next day's project or whatever it was. And from time to time, Bianca and I would be the last people there because that's what happens when you own the company. And we would say, hey man, you want to go grab a beer or get some dinner or something? Because he's done with his work for the day. And he'd say, sure. So we'd end up sitting around having a beer or 2 or 3 and talking about how are things going, what's going on with the warehouse folks, how are the other installers doing, you hearing about anything good or bad going on that that we should address. And we found that to be really helpful. And we would do that every 2 or 3 months. And I thought it was great to get information sort of straight from the horse's mouth about how are things going. So for reasons unrelated to the story, Rick doesn't work for our company anymore, but we were on vacation, Bianca and I, not that long ago, last summer, at a beach town. and she happened to see that Rick posted on Facebook about being at the town right next door with his wife and kid. So Bianca messaged him and said, hey man, you want to meet up and have a beer one of these days, like the old days? We hadn't seen him in probably a year or more. And he says, sure, oh yeah, that'd be great, So we're sitting around talking in this little beach bar, and he was, complaining about the new place he's working, and just kind of standard stuff, really no big deal. And then he says, funny story, I almost got fired a couple of weeks ago. And I thought, really, that's odd. This guy's great. He's personable, he's friendly, he's compassionate, he understands the customers. He's the guy we would send out when there were problems. We would send him to go solve them because he's pretty good at that stuff. So it seemed odd that he was on the verge of getting fired recently. So I asked him what was going on, and he said, well, I had this customer installing their windows. Project was mostly done, and we just had some cleanup, finish up work to do. I was sitting on the tailgate having a sandwich, and the customer was getting something out of the yard, and we were just talking, had a great rapport, and the customer asks him if he's a contractor or an employee of this company. Now, the company he works for now, not my company, is a pretty large company in the area. A lot of people would know them. They're pretty small, they don't have any national presence. So in the scheme of things, they're kind of a little guy, but locally, it's a well-known outfit. And Rick says, no, I'm a subcontractor for them, but I've been working for them for a year now or whatever it's been, and things are going good. And the customer's just friendly as could be and says, all right, cool, yeah, sounds good. Well, I appreciate your work, on and on. And that was that, no big deal. Well, the next day, Rick gets a call from the owner of this company, yelling and screaming at him, saying, I can't believe you did that. You knew the rules, and what are you talking about? And he was, Rick was kind of thrown off. He said, I don't even know what you mean. Well, it turns out the customer went back and complained to the salesperson about the fact that salesperson lied to him. Because it turns out this company trains all of their employees, all their salespeople, to tell all their customers that the installers are all employees and they work for this company and they have this whole training process and nobody else has installers as good as their installers, and on and on and on, when really that's just plain old not the case. So Rick thought he was buddies with his customer, no problem, didn't really think anything of it. In fact, he's proud of the fact that he runs his own business, meaning he has to pay his own taxes, he does his own payroll, he hires his own helpers and fires his own helpers, and depreciates his truck and his tools that are expensive and all that stuff. So for him, it's a point of pride that he owns his own business and he does all that extra work. But for the company, this was a real negative because they had sold this customer and all of their customers on the fact that all of their installers are employees and nobody else's installers are as good as their installers, and on and on and on. So it didn't really matter in the scheme of things, but it did make the salesperson into a liar, and it almost cost Rick his job. And that's unfortunately how a lot of these companies operate. The point they're trying to get across to you is they have reliable installers who know what they're doing, who do their work, and who are professional. And if you had any issue during the install or down the road, it would get taken care of in a professional manner. That was all true, but the tax status of the installer had no bearing on that, but it ended up catching them in a problem in that case. So that's the story. The tax status of the installer, not really relevant in the scheme of things, but you do want to be comfortable when you're hiring a window company on who are they going to send to install your windows. Are they comfortable that these guys are going to know what they're doing? Are they prepared to address an issue should it come up, either during the install or afterwards? And if you can get comfortable with that, then the company is probably just fine, regardless of how they pay their installers. So that's the answer for today. Now you'll find in the description below some helpful links if you're looking for those sorts of things. One will be a way to find my company's locations if you'd be interested in a window project. We'd be happy to help you out. Also, if you're in an area that my company does not serve, we will perhaps have other companies that we recommend in your area. We know a lot of people all over the country, and you can find all that in the description. You'd also find a link to the TheWindowDog.com website, where you can find the greatest replacement window information on the entire internet, so you might check that out. And in addition to all that, you want to make sure you hit subscribe here so you don't lose access to any of these videos, and hit that thumbs up button that you'll see down below, which shows YouTube that you thought this was a valuable thing. So that's all we've got for now. Tune in next week for Window Wednesday, where we're going to talk about the one and only reason that window companies use today-only pricing. It in fact relates back to our human caveman days and our evolution from then, so you might get a kick out of that. And we're going to have some bonus videos in between, so there's a lot of good stuff coming out. We'll see you next time.